Welcome. This is the Insider's Edge to Real Estate Investing with James Nelson, the principal and head of Avison Young's U.S. Investment Sales Group, and his co-host, Kim Troller, from his investment sales team. In this program, you'll learn game-changing strategies to outperform the market. James will teach you how to source, execute, and capitalize on the best real estate opportunities in New York and around the world. Now, here are your hosts.
Welcome, everyone, to episode number 241 of the Insider's Edge to Real Estate Investing. This is your co-host, James Nelson.
And I'm Kim Troller, also your co-host.
And we have a big treat for you all today. We have with us Don Tepman, who is none other than Strip Mall Guy. And for those of you who have been living in a cave, maybe you have not, or maybe not on social media. And yes, there are some of you still out there. Maybe you've not heard of Don or Strip Mall Guy. But this is a really great conversation we're going to have. Don is founder and managing partner of TownCentre Capital, but widely known online as Strip Mall Guy. Don shares about how he built his portfolio by focusing on neighborhood strip centers, starting with suburban retail properties and expanding across the U.S.
You'll hear the story behind Strip Mall Guy and the brand and how Don's anonymous social media account became a platform for sharing practical real estate insights. He speaks about the importance of specialization and establishing a competitive advantage for yourself and knowing your asset type and market segment better than anyone. And they close all their deals all cash, by the way. I love how he's been able to use social media to build and elevate his personal brand while still being able to be like the main point of contact. He's not hiring anyone to do his outreach or write his content for him. It's all authentic, genuine, and directly from him.
Yeah, no, he has really harnessed the power of social media, but not just to kind of, it's not about him. It's about, again, how can he make better connections? How can he find more deals, more opportunities, make more broker connections? Look, this podcast is an extension of this. I mean, this is a way for him to get his message out, but he's leading with content. And I think that is what's so amazing. And I asked him at some point in the interview, Don, how do you think of all these things? He says, no, I just come up with it. And when I am having these thoughts, I figure, hey, if I'm wrestling with this question, probably someone else is. So I love the transparency that he's willing to share. And it's just, again, he's putting out such tremendous value that there's no doubt that created a great network here.
100%.
So as always, you can go to jamesnelson.com. That's where you can find the show notes with this episode. You can find out how to connect with Don, although he is very easy to find. And last but not least, at the end, Don speaks about the real estate gala that he puts out. So keep a lookout for that. It's an amazing thing, bringing all these social media influencers offline, in person together. It's an incredible event. And again, he does such incredible things for the industry. So with that, we're going to have a brief word from our sponsor, and we will get right into our interview with Don Tepman.
Avison Young's United States investment sales platform executes on multifamily office, retail, development, and specialty asset transactions across top U.S. markets. As experienced leaders in the industry, our integrated national team is here to help you make informed investment decisions, whether advising on your current holdings or identifying new opportunities nationwide. Our one unified platform is built on unparalleled collaboration and connectivity across 120 full-service offices around the world, giving clients direct access to the deepest pools of capital. We put our clients first, delivering tailor-made strategies to achieve superior results.
Welcome, everyone. Thrilled to have with us today Don Tepman, who is founder and managing partner of TownCentre Capital and famously known as Strip Mall Guy. Don, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Excited.
Awesome. Really excited to have this conversation. I think for most of our followers, I'd be shocked if they didn't know who you were. They haven't followed what you've done. But I'd like to actually start with telling the audience about TownCentre Capital, your holdings. What does it encompass now? I know there's been exponential growth. We're going to be talking about how that has happened, but maybe just for our audience, talk about what does the portfolio look like today and what is the focus for acquisitions?
For sure. So we started buying properties in 2006 with just, suburban, just your classic Class C, Class B strip mall. And we bought 45 deals over the years. We rebranded to TownCentre Capital about 5 years ago because it was called University Avenue Partners in the Bay Area, which everyone knows is in, Palo Alto, but, outside of that, everyone's like, well, are you a school or are you, college, university? And so we rebranded, and now we're buying deals nationwide. The last fund, we bought 12 properties, and we're buyers and sellers. We don't really usually hold for more than 3 or 4 years. So right now, I think we own 13 of them, but, have a escrow to buy, escrow to sell. And so I think that the portfolio, I would doubt if it ever went above about 20, because again, we're always buying and selling. Mm-hmm.
So you've spoken publicly about the importance of having a competitive advantage and specialization. And obviously you've been established this brand as Strip Mall Guy. Walk us through the evolution of Strip Mall Guy. I know you were anonymous for like 3 years and you finally revealed your identity. So walk us through that entire process and why you decided to stay anonymous at first, and then why you kind of came public with it.
Sure. So, like the whole Strip Mall Guy brand happened by accident. I didn't want it to, didn't expect it to. And so I literally was on an airplane in 2021. And, just over the years, I got tired of hearing the TikTok narrative of like, real estate's easy, passive income, taking on a lot of debt, all these things that make you lose money. But every time I would want to post for my Don Tepman account, which has like 9 followers, right? Still, I think on X, I would be scared to hit that post button because I don't know what my investors might think or my employees or tenants. So I just would never do it. And then so one day I'm on this plane, I'm killing time. Like, what, let me just put together just an account that's anonymous, not tied to me, and just post, like renewal options, parking ratio, boring things, but, like the right thing after doing, strip mall deals for so long. And so I just started posting under, this anonymous account, and I would going to, basically close it after a day or two to just start taking off. I thought it was an algorithm problem. I didn't know what the deal was, but it just got started exploding. And it got to a point where, I love writing and sharing knowledge, but I didn't know that it can benefit the business at all. I didn't think that it ever could or would. So I kept posting, but it got to a point where it started getting bigger, and I started getting DMs from people that are legitimate folks in the industry, other industries that wanted to connect. So, again, I didn't plan on it, but now it's the operating system of our entire business. And, I was anonymous at first because I didn't want to rock the boat on my career. And I'm a private person. Yeah. I'm an introvert. And like, I liked the career I was building. I was raising a bunch of capital from, high net worth folks out in Silicon Valley. And I was like, well, I don't want to rock the boat on this. What does it mean to be public? What are my investors going to think? And then so for the first 2 years, I was weirdly, really protective of, my identity. Like a few people knew here and there, but I was like, and then after a while, I realized that it could be a deal flow hack and advantage. And then when I finally went public through The Real Deal, our deal flow just started skyrocketing.
I was going to ask, did your social media presence actually improve your deal flow, or was it mostly your network? And how has your online presence changed the way that brokers and investors are actually approaching you?
Yeah. So when I was a broker early in my career, right, I knew that if a principal called me from Texas or whatever, Florida, and I was in San Francisco and they wanted me to send them deals, I just knew that I would never do that. Right. You send them the information on your, but it's like, it's out of sight, out of mind. And it's like, I have my local people that I think of every single day because they call me and reach out. This guy or woman who reaches out once or twice a year, like, sorry, not going to work. So that was my challenge on the principal side. I was insecure about calling a broker out of the area and saying, hey, I'm in San Francisco or, New York now. I know you're in Chicago. Think of me. And it's just like, I know how that's perceived. It's like, listen, like, I'm not going to think of you if you call me once a year. I have my local buyers that I hear from every single day or week. And so what social media did is it's creating a situation where we are more top of mind nationwide, right? So it's like, obviously, like there's a strategy to this, right? Where, if brokers are aware of you nationally, the odds of them sending you deals go up obviously a lot. And now we're, rather than emailing them every day or playing golf or whatever, we're in their, inbox, if you will, through the social media accounts. And I think we've done $30 million of deals now that I can directly attribute to the social media brand.
Wow.
You know, what's amazing about that decision when you decided to flip the switch, go public with this, is it was not ego and, hey, everybody look at me. It was, with this kind of almost business decision where, hey, this can actually be an incredible way to create deal flow. And I know even to this point, we talk, you say, hey, what do you focus on doing here? He said, I want more brokers to hear about what I'm doing and owners so I can find more opportunities. And so really leveraging the power of social media to actually create deal flow. And so I think that that's a really important thing for our audience to learn about. The other thing I really appreciate about what you're doing is the value and the content that you're putting out. And again, I don't know, your mind must be running constantly, because I don't even know how you come up with all these ideas, but whether it's, a recent post about, talking about how hiring a property manager can be one of the toughest things out there, or you're strolling along the street on Madison Avenue and just kind of whatever's on your mind. So
correct.
Do you kind of plan out and think about themes and kind of test them, or is it just kind of stream of consciousness, whatever's on your mind that you want to share?
Sure. I mean, it'd be way too hard to sit there and try to create content. It's just, I have a busy job, et cetera. And so what I do is I'm kind of live casting my thoughts. So as my day goes on, if I think something is interesting or I have a question about something, the odds are that many others will also think it's interesting or have that same question. To your example about the property manager, which that resonated and got 100,000 views, whatever. I mean, it's just like we're struggling right now to find a property manager. It's been 6 months. We're interviewing. It's a hard role to fill. And it's on my mind. So it's like, if I have that struggle, I'm sure others do as well. So I put it out there, and it resonated with many folks around the US. And they're like, yeah, it's a hard role to fill. And I'm offering 150 base plus bonus, et cetera. And still for that salary, very few applicants who are qualified. So I just go about my day. I don't worry about, it's like, I never really can run out of thoughts. Right. So, it's just that what thoughts do I think are interesting? And I pause and just post it. It doesn't take that long. I mean, I think if all of us are just more aware of things that we think about, see, hear, question, and just share it with an audience, that's really all the account is. I'm not saying anything that's crazy ingenious or like, oh my goodness, I never thought about that, heard of that. And so it's just live casting my thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you put it out there, I mean, it's not just that 100,000 people see it. Clearly, people are engaging with it. So how do you manage, the flow as far as the feedback? I mean, people are probably DMing you constantly and this and that. And a lot of that is great, especially if they're, opportunities that people are sending you. But do you have like a social media manager?
No.
Are you how do you even keep up with this all?
No. So every post, every DM has always been only me, every response. Look, I don't think outsourcing it works. I mean, I think that you're capped on how big the audience can get. The algorithm is smart and knows if it's, if it's some third party that's just like here and there checking boxes. Something happened where about a year ago, a gentleman DM'd me who's a well-known figure. He's on television, whatever it is. And he wanted to meet up in New York. And so I said, no problem. I'm not going to say his name, obviously, here. And so he, responded and went, back and forth. And then 2 weeks later, I coincidentally just saw him on the street in Midtown. And I said, hey, how's it going? And he just, it freaked him out. And I was like, oh, it's Don, strip mall guy. We're just DMing. And he had no idea what I was talking about. And I realized in that moment, it wasn't him DMing me.
Wow.
Right. And so I don't ever want to be that. Of course, a lot of DMs that come in don't get seen, don't get responded to, not because I want to, it just, I can't manage it all. And it's just kind of done randomly, but it's better to have that than be not authentic and having just a third party communicating and commenting and just not being genuine. And I think that's what makes the account work, is just I do it and it takes, an hour and a half a day, whatever it is, but it's the most high leverage use of my time by far. I mean, it's deal flow, fundraising, recruiting. It's the center, of our business, but it has to be genuine. It has to be you. Because if you could outsource it, everyone would just do that. And it becomes just like a commodity product. It's like some folks do, and they do fine, but you can't really get to that next level where it's like, wow, that's an amazing account. And it's great if it's some other person doing it.
Yeah. I mean, for building a personal brand and also just having deep relationships with people, authenticity is huge. So we can definitely understand that. I'd love to hear about how you actually got started in real estate and then what led to ultimately like founding your company in 2006. Like why strip malls? Why focus on that sector specifically?
Yeah, so I went to Santa Clara University in Silicon Valley and graduated in 2002, which meant that I was in my dorm room during 99 when everyone had a startup, including me and friends, and it was a crazy tech wave where everyone had egos because we were raising money from. I mean, it was crazy.
What was your startup?
It's called College Elite. So we would go. Just our peers were like Stanford, UCLA, USC. In Texas in school. And we would say, okay, finance major at Stanford, who is our friend from high school, go give me like the top 10, like computer science students. And then like eBay, Schwab, all these companies, rather than hiring interns at job fairs, would come to us and just like hire from our like kind of pre-screened group of like top students in like these 12 colleges, like in Oregon. It was just like amazing. And so that was it. And then, when layoffs started getting announced, that went out of business like overnight, which was good because it was a moment of humility.
Yeah.
Right. And so I went from embarrassingly walking into Google during that time and be like, hot new startup. I walked into the lobby and said, hire me. I want a job here. That's how amazing I thought I was, which I was. It's a true story. And Al Gore was in the lobby randomly. It was a very weird day. But and so I was humbled by the crash, which was the best thing that could have happened. And then 2002, I was just, I need a job. And family friend introduced me to his broker and said, hey, meet with this guy. And then I met with a gentleman who did, Class B strip center sales and leasing. I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't understand, but he had a nice Rolex and made money and showed me these like check stubs that the guy was doing real well. I said, I don't know what you do, but let me just start and try it. And the first day he's like, here's a binder, cold call these owners. And so I just started calling property owners, seeing if they'll sell. But what changed is that I think he had 70 shopping center listings for lease. And I would take those calls. And then sometimes, a nail salon would say, I can't really, it wouldn't work for our site for nail salon. So I go represent them as a tenant rep broker, which is crazy for $1,000 commission. I'd go help them find sites. But through that, I got to know how they think, site selection for mom and pop tenant, parking ratios, signage, etc. And I started realizing that there's inefficiencies in the strip mall space like crazy. Like 92% of these owners are not institutions. They're just kind of local families, which means that they leave a lot of money on the table. Spaces that are vacant that shouldn't be, rents that are half market rent because that liquor store convinced them that $3,000 is all they can pay. And so, I studied the business through leasing and sales. And then in 2006, I saw a deal in Fremont, California. It was $1.4 million. The back space was vacant, had no visibility on Fremont Boulevard. And I said, if I create a monument sign for like $10,000, I can create visibility. Your sign here, lease that back space. So I was like 600 feet. Got all excited, called everyone I knew. I raised $400,000 from like 12 people, put $100,000 in for my own money, which is all I had at that point. Really, I'd saved. Got a loan for $1 million, so $400,000 down, $1 million loan, $1.4 million purchase price, bought the thing, put up a monument sign, leased the space, sold it for $1.8 million. So everyone made $400,000 on $400,000 in like a year and a day. Like maybe this is a business. And at the time, I thought it was just a way for me to get a listing. I didn't even think that was a business model. Like syndications, I didn't even know what that was, and so I didn't even charge any fees. It was just like guaranteed commission to sell, And so that was my first deal, and 45-day deals later, every one of our deals has been a variation of what I just described. Find some inefficiency that we can address through our actions, address them, add the value, and sell once you're stabilized.
Yeah, I got to say, for starters, I'm having a hard time believing that you're an introvert because, even being in that role and that outreach and having to canvas, that is not an easy job. Plenty of rejection there.
It doesn't mean that it wasn't a struggle and isn't still a struggle. Like this podcast today, I'm doing it because it's amazing opportunity, obviously, with your platform and but it's for because there's a brokerage audience out there. That's how I earn my living. Finding deals is the hardest thing in real estate by far. And so, we have this annual gala that we'll talk about. I'm petrified when I know that, the gala's a month away, 2 weeks away. It's tomorrow. I don't sleep the night before. Right. So I think to me, an extrovert, gets energy out of being out there. And introvert. It takes energy out of them. And so I've had to learn. I mean, I first time I was got invited to Harvard 2 years ago, I could barely speak when I got out there. I was like, what's going on here? But now I've been there 3 times now. And the last time it's like pretty easy. You just get, do it. It's like not a big deal. So it just kind of trial by fire, just forcing myself to canvas back then. It just, you have to.
So I'd love to talk about the discipline because it is so specific with what you buy and you put it out there, even the depth of the stores. And maybe you could talk a little bit about it. But when I've brought you ideas, hey, Don, I think this is a great idea. You said, no, big box, not what I do. I think, now that you have plenty of investors who are approaching you, and again, we can get to, as it graduated beyond private investors, kind of larger checks, but, suddenly, if you have the opportunity to put more equity to work, that could, mandate either more deals or larger deals. And yet you've been, and I think it's amazing that you've stayed so disciplined to the specific asset class. So maybe talk about why, you've continued to double down again and again on that and haven't kind of expanded, chased, larger opportunities. There's all these, dark boxes out there. Why have you continued to just stay in your lane, so to speak?
Yeah. So I believe that your knowledge and network compounds, right? So it's like when you focus on one thing, as time goes, you'll get better and better at it. If I shifted to a grocery anchor deal or big box, I lose 10 years or 15 years of knowledge because that's an entirely different world, different tenants, different approach. That's more of like a, asset management role than it is really deep value add. I don't know how to lease a big box space, right? Mm-hmm. Like I know how to lease mom and pop, spaces. We very proactive. So it's like staying in your lane is a hack. A lot of people think, who are very smart, they shift every 5 years. I've seen folks who are absolutely brilliant. They have just okay careers because every 5 years they're like, I can do this. The grass is always greener. Why don't you graduate to something else? And it's like, if I graduated to grocery anchored, I'd be competing with Kimco, who is very, very, very good at what they do, and Regency, and other players who have raised hundreds of millions of dollars and seen this many
cost
years.
Of capital.
Yeah. And it's like so my competitive advantage goes away. The same thing, all these folks that jump into strip malls, like I know how hard it is. It's not that simple. Leasing is hard, and it's like like we're at a weird time right now where things are just really rosy in the sector, but it's like folks jump in and they get hurt, and and I've seen it, and so I think specializing is really, really important, and so I'm gonna keep doing this for X amount of years, and that's why deal finding is so hard because it is really specific, and everyone wants value add now, et cetera, and so finding deals is so hard that a lot of the real estate world doesn't try anymore, right? So a lot of folks raise a lot of money, right? And they buy average deals, they buy base hits, and investors are totally fine with that. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad strategy. They make more money than I do in many cases, but it's like the formula shifted to, okay, let's just try to buy stabilized deals at scale. And by definition, you're not finding diamonds in the rough. Like, you're not really finding, value add, but they're not looking for it. And so investors are fine with a lower return when that's their target. Right. And it's just not what we do, because I can't make money buying average deals by doing, $6 million per deal on average. There's just not enough absolute dollars. So like, we need situations where we create deep value and like think of things outside the box, like that first deal. And again, focusing on one thing allows us to do that. Mm-hmm.
Post-pandemic, there's been a lot of conversation around strip malls and how they're more experiential. I'm curious to hear how the strip mall space has evolved since you first started out in the space to today, especially as it's become more institutionalized.
Yeah, a lot more buyers now, right? So I don't know if I have a hand in that, jokingly, but like, a lot more attention to the strip mall category. Everyone wants value add now, where I think people don't even know what that means a lot of the times. Like, and so, it was a lot easier to buy deals 20 years ago, and then 10 years ago, and then in 10 years, it'll seem easy to buy deals now. So there's a lot more information out there. It used to be like when I started in 2002, like, people that had strip malls would be like, yeah, you want to buy my strip mall, like at a 7 cap, like, here you go. Like, it wasn't this like, oh, I know what I have thing. So that's changed. A lot more cold calling of owners now. So we used to buy deals as principals more early in my career, and which is harder to do that. And now the brokers are really on top of, every single owner of every strip mall is getting calls probably regularly. And so, that's changed. And also, I think that, one thing that's not as good as, how long it takes to open a store now and how expensive it is versus even 5 years ago has really, really changed. Because doing a restaurant deal now, mom and pop tenants who maybe haven't done one in 5 or 6 years are not realizing that it's $600,000 instead of $200,000 now, and it'll take you a year, like a year and a half to open versus 6 months. So, lots has definitely changed over the last, 24 years that, I've been in this now.
It's really interesting that you bring up the access to information at such a widespread level, because generally and historically, that's what's made real estate so efficient or inefficient, is that there's a lack of information. And so if you have sort of like insider knowledge, I know James speaks about this in like the first page of his book, but like that's what kind of gives you that edge into actually getting a good deal opportunity. I'd love to drill into your value add strategy, maybe through a couple deal examples. I read about your Camino collections in Santa Clara, how you took this 8-unit strip center, fully renovated and repositioned it, put new tenants in, new facade. Please walk us through like what made this a compelling opportunity for you and like what you did here.
Example, because I think a lot of people right now, are really focused on value add. That deal is what I mean by value add. And so folks now are like, oh, value add. The liquor store is paying $4,000 a month rent. I'll, renew them at $5,000. The hair salon's on a gross lease. I'll make it triple net and I'll lease a vacancy. That's not value add. That's not like that. That doesn't really exist at scale. A value add deal to me is a big, difficult pain in the butt deal to do where it's super hands-on. You really have to have knowledge. That deal, we I think renewed 6 leases, but we did a heavy facade remodel, which took like a year and a half. We spent millions of dollars of equity. We don't finance the construction. We had a space that was difficult to fill. We canvassed, we sent out mailers, recruited tenants. We ended up getting Verizon to move from down the street by doing this creative deal with them. We got a learning center to take this elbow space with very little visibility by, figuring out something for them, on the monument sign, TI allowance. Every single renewal was a struggle. And, one of the tenants, right, like the rent in that area is $36 or more very easily. El Camino Real, Santa Clara, Harris, Silicon Valley. And one of the tenants wouldn't pay more than $12. Right. And I'm like, look, the rent doesn't go to me. Like, it's just like the market makes the rent, not me. And everyone around you is signing deals at $36, whatever it is. And that tenant was very upset with me. Like, I don't make the market rent. And it's like, I'm a fiduciary. I can't legally charge a third of market rent. Who would rationally do that? And so that tenant didn't want to move. And, and it's like, I don't want to push them and but it's like, it took a long time and back and forth, and they got in the way of our construction. And so it was a serious headache deal all the way around. But we bought it, I think, for 4.5, sold it for, I'm guessing, 12-ish or something. I don't know what it was, but it's like, so every deal we do, there was one that we bought in El Cajon, California a couple of years ago. Right. And that property, it's 2 buildings, and in the middle is this median that goes front to back where cars can't get from one side to the other. It was just it was on Craigslist, basically, on the market, or whatever it was. And it's like, buyers missed that. And so I'm like, look, if you literally create an opening in this strip mall, you've opened it up, customers can get in and out, you've changed the entire product. So it wasn't some genius complicated move, but I think most buyers who looked at that were like, oh, what a weird center. There's no access. How are tenants going to get in and out? And it's like, oh, wait, look, just think about it and just solve the problem. And that was our value unlock. And tenants are like, wow, all these new customers come in now who never stopped in. And, those going across to the hair salon are now coming here to my store, and just doing things like that outside the box. And it's like, most people that are just jumping in the business, I don't think would have, seen that.
How do you do that effectively at a national scale? Because I get that if it's, in your backyard, because the type of hands-on reposition you're talking about, like you need boots on the ground. I mean, I'm sure you can't do that all remotely. So how do you effectively do that across the country? And some of these markets are secondary, tertiary markets that you're going into. So like, how do you even get there?
I think that the concept of only do deals in your local area is the biggest blind spot of my career. It is old 1940s thinking of real estate before Google Earth. Okay, now, like when I started in the business, if someone showed me a deal in Houston and I'm in the Bay Area, like I don't know, like I have to go there. Like I don't know anything about it. Now, like you pull up an aerial and immediately have a very good sense of what this is. Beyond that, it's not hard to assess, right, if a deal pencils or not remotely very quickly. I think there's been one deal in my whole career where we liked it, and then when I get there, it's not what I thought, only because the elbow was a lot worse. It was one of those V-shaped ones where it's like, okay, it doesn't work. But beyond that, you can get a good sense of a property no matter where it is, as long as you can change the rent variable and your exit cap rate.
But then how do you actually do the work in the repositioning?
Yeah, I will get there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
No, I get asked that a lot. That's why I joke. So we do the leasing in-house anywhere in the country. My team was in Tucson last week. 3 people from my team were in Tucson all week. We got 6 tours. We're going to get 2 deals done in a week. Okay. As a broker who worked on 1,200 square foot spaces when I was in my early 20s, I understand that I'm not going to spend time and money on a space that small for a $3,000 commission. I don't expect the brokers to. The owners of properties underpay the brokers. Like, it just doesn't make any sense beyond them putting up a sign, putting it on Crexy and waiting. I don't blame them, right? For us, because we are value add, every space I lease adds $100,000 in value overnight, right? So we will canvas, we will FedEx by the hundreds a week for great operators to recruit them to our centers. And so if my team spends a week on the ground in the market, they're going to get more done than a leasing broker will over a year. And, I say that because I did that role. It's not a knock on brokers. We don't pay them enough on the mom and pop centers. Like no one's going to do a bunch of work for $4,000 pre-split. Okay. So I feel like we have an advantage doing it in-house, right? Even remotely. Right, versus a local broker who will wait and put up a sign. On the construction, it gets a little bit more complicated, but you'll be shocked to hear that we GC all our own work, not because of the fees, it's because we save so much money. When you hire a general contractor, they're going to have their subs that they do business with. Here's my stucco person, here's my framer. Period. It is what it is. We will go out and get 6 bids for stucco, 6 local bids for painting, for drywall, whatever it is, just through other owners in the area, et cetera. And so, it takes a little bit longer. The folks make mistakes. We're out there not as often as we would be if it was local, but we've done deals obviously locally on construction and when it's in Indiana, and it's not, you can do it. It's not that big of a deal. I think being there in person all the time is overrated. We're living that. Even Bay Area deals, we have the stuff an hour away from our office for construction, whatever it is. We're not there all the time or daily or what have you. And even on a property management, right? If there's a vendor that handles landscape, there's an HVAC contractor, garbage company, we have a camera. If someone runs into the building or something, you call a local, right, a vendor that fixes. So I think, especially retail, when it's triple net, tenants don't want to call you unless they have to. It's if there's a roof leak, you call your roofer. Even if we were local, if there's a roof leak, I'm not going to go out there and look at the roof leak. So right. I do think that mentality, Blackstone's not buying deals in only one area.
Yeah.
And Starbucks isn't just all it. So it's you have to be able to do deals nationally. And I think it's just a mental shift. It was the biggest mistake I made in my career was believing that I got to stay in Santa Clara County or Alameda County. It was just, it was a mistake, in hindsight.
So because you guys are all market agnostic, and it seems like what's really important to you is basis and upside potential for your value add business plan.
Correct.
Where do the majority of your best deals typically come from? Is it direct, a broker, a lender? And how do you go about finding these deals and then differentiating yourself as a buyer to give yourself a leg up in the process?
Yeah, so it's brokers. I mean, we're all in on the broker network. That's why I do the whole social media thing. Differentiating. So we are a fund, right? We're not tying up a deal, running around syndicating or, getting a loan. We buy every single deal, all cash, every single time. So it's like
every time.
Wow. So as a broker, I knew if I had two offers, one was at 8 million, one was at 7.8 million, but the 8 million was 45-day due diligence. There's a lender. It's like some person. Or 200 grand less, but they can do DD in 21 days. They're going to buy it all cash, close in 30 days. There's no hand holding. These people know their craft. I would sell, and sellers also go with the cash person, I think, very often. So, brokers like to hear, every deal we do, you will double end it. There's no broker on our side. You're going to sell it again. We cannot hold legally per our agreements. We're a fund. We have a fund life cycle. We have to get in, and in a few years, get out, right? There's no hand holding. When we move lightning fast, there was a very large institution that sold us a deal. I'm not going to share the name, but it was an 84-page PSA. We turned it around in 4 hours and closed like 3 weeks later, all cash, right? So we give people that surety of close. And so like in the strip mall space for us, one of the biggest issues is because we sell to kind of random locals, a lot of times they don't close. We're tied up or in escrow, and then I don't know what else is happening with them. Maybe they're tying up other properties. We don't have surety of close. Curbline has been great now in strip malls. They're providing that for sellers. So it's like we give brokers and buyers, the one large fund that actually buys these Class C, B minus strip centers.
So, I mean, sorry, James, to cut you off, but you started, as you described earlier, your first deal was a single asset syndication, like $1 million. Yeah. So how did you move from the syndication model to the fund model? What drove that decision?
Sure. So every time you're doing deal by deal, you're scrambling around, you're dealing with, getting paperwork signed, getting your investors lined up. A lot of times when that investor that guaranteed you $1 million, next deal, no problem, when the deal comes up, they're in Thailand with their family and it's December and they're like, hey, it's not a good timing for me, or they don't have the money, life changes. And so just like it's so hard to find deals and executing that. Worrying about fundraising as you're doing a deal, puts you at a disadvantage. Also, when you have a fund, we have a line of credit with Citizens Bank, right? That means that within 48 hours, I hit a button and, I can get up to, I think, $15 million in cash as I need it. So like that's secured by our fund documents. When you're deal by deal, a syndicator, you can't do that. And so for me, you can't raise a fund unless you have a track record, I think for anyone. So for me, once I did my 30th deal, I'm like, you know what? And at this point, LPs are investing in Don, not in a property that I'm pitching them. And it's like, they recognize that I'm doing this every single day. And so like, when you're raising a fund, it's a blind fund. Like the LPs don't know what you're buying until you buy them. But it's like the great thing is you have all the money already raised. So it's like, I think like in politics, fundraising doesn't help your day-to-day business whatsoever. It kind of takes you away from what the goals are. So in having a fund, you kind of get that out of the way. And also it's been a crazy deal flow hack, right? Institutions, two REITs have now sold us deals. And them knowing that we're a fund is huge for choosing us, awarding us deals, because when you're a large institution, when you get into escrow and someone drops a deal, that's expensive for you. That's a lot of employees who are high paid working on this, and you wasted everyone's time. So a fund as a deal flow hack is so underrated. And so I didn't even realize that until after we started, because a lot of people bring us deals now that otherwise wouldn't, because they know that all the capital is all there right now. And we can close a deal that's $30 million in 21 days without me running around fundraising.
That's great. I'd like to go back to, if brokers are your number one source of deals, you have this incredible network where at this point, a lot of brokers are coming to you. And then I'm sure you have to kind of sift through all that to kind of find out. But are you proactively going to try to reach out to brokers to expand your network? I'm also curious if you're leveraging AI, thinking about, because, brokerage also is a really kind of inefficient marketplace. I mean, you got some people who are kind of generalists. I'm sure in these secondary, tertiary markets, someone might do a lease one day, a sale another day. So who are the brokers you're even targeting, and how do you reach out to them and cultivate those relationships? Or are you just waiting for people to kind of find you?
I think that's the best question I've ever been asked, because I think about that 25 times a day, because it's one thing to have a social media presence. How do you translate it into deals? Which does happen, but it's so I'm always changing that, because the odds of someone finding a deal and bringing it to us when they just are aware of us because of social media are not that high. But if I can leverage that and create a meeting, right, where it's okay, now let's do a 20-minute Zoom call, and now we know each other, we're on email, we're texting, the odds of them bringing me a deal have now skyrocketed, right, a lot. So you also, right, there's not really a way to prioritize the brokers that much, because a one-off broker who does leasing that does one deal every 5 years is just as likely a lot of times to have that next value add deal than, the Dallas team at whatever large brokerage of 6 people. So I've got my kind of 100 list of brokers that I click with and I like them and they work on this product, and, I focus on that, but also I'm trying to myself be on 8 Zooms a day with the brokers. And then as they send in deals, my team will analyze them, get back to them, go from there. So right now, my biggest priority is turning the social media brand into one-on-one, conversations. And, I do it through ICSE. Our team emails out a lot. Hey, love to chat with you. I'm posting every week. Yesterday, I did a calendary, whatever it's called, on LinkedIn. I said, hey, if you're a retail broker anywhere in America, right, sales or leasing, here's my calendar, here's 15 slots, let's talk. And, it filled up, and it's every one of that, those calls can lead to a deal. There's also 50,000 retail and sales brokers in America. So it's how many can we talk to? So without social media, I don't know how you get an advantage in buying strip centers today. I literally don't know.
So maybe part of the answer, I haven't heard much about your team and what everybody else is doing, but I mean, you're answering all or as many of your, DMs as you can, but you're also the point person for acquisitions. I mean, I'm sure you have an acquisitions team. I mean, could you have, is it 20 people, 10 people reaching out to other brokers to set up those Zooms as well? Or do you think it really has to be?
No, I mean, they do, but the brand awareness, if I reach out and someone's been following me, the odds of them responding to an email, versus, whether it's Grant, Maria, James, Andrew, whoever on my team, when they reach out, you don't have that competitive advantage where someone's oh, I know who they are. So the rate of acceptance of a Zoom, brokers are busy. They're not paid on salary. I get that. I was there, and, every minute of your day really, really matters. So it's a broker is going to spend 20 minutes of their day talking to a quote random buyer who's not even in their market. Most won't. And I don't blame them. Right. If it comes from me, they at least, some of them maybe appreciate, maybe they learned something over the years, but I take this really seriously where, if a broker takes their time to get on a call with me, anyone, on my team, that's, we're honored. I don't take it lightly. That's the holy grail for me, because, if we can do a couple thousand of those a year, we're going to do deals. I don't focus on let's do deals today. That's not really actionable. It's how many brokers can we talk to today? And then further, we measure success by how many brokers are calling us every single day, just because they're thinking of us, and now they know us and they're reaching out to us, because the vast majority of brokers of principals in America, brokers are not calling them every day, cold calling them, hey, I have a deal for you. It's hard to get to a point where that's happening. And so that's our top of funnel, social media to actual connecting, to sending us deals, to actually doing deals.
It's a great way of using social media. I mean, it's amazing that you've been able to scale your personal brand and your platform, but you've stayed authentic to who you are, and you've maintained that like human touch point throughout the whole process. So I think that's pretty hard to do, to scale while still being like having that one-on-one contact with people.
We could go on for another hour, and this is amazing. And thank you as always for sharing all your, such incredible advice. We only have a couple minutes left, so would love to talk about this big gala. Coming up. Let us know what is this gala? What was the impetus for it? And we'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, it happened randomly. I mean, I was, on social media, I was anonymous, and I like 4 years ago, I'm like, you know what if we all met in person? All these folks that connect online, why don't we just meet in the room and just see what happens? So I just on a whim just posted, and then Mike, who runs Crexy, agreed to help pay for it. I'm like, holy smokes. And so we did this event at Soho House, and even though I was anonymous, no one like took pictures. But it was just so much love in that room, and people were just like hugging each other and connecting, and it felt like the airport, like the arrivals lounge, and so I'm like, why don't we do this again? And so we kind of up the ante. We do it every year, where it's a celebration of the folks doing great things in real estate, but also leveraging social media like you to grow their business, further. And so we have it now at peak. We've had great guests. Jeff Blau came on stage with me 2 years ago, and he obviously runs Related, and he said that one of the ways that he gets his real estate news in the morning is through Strip Mall Guy account. And I was like, holy smokes!
like I made it.
Yeah, like Emmett Smith wanted to come out last year, and it gets media coverage, and it's become this like hot ticket. I mean, I'm not great at how the list is curated because, we have a small team, and, we miss a lot of DMs. We try to do the best we can. It's not a profit center for me. We don't make money on it whatsoever. And so, we try to bring folks that use social media, good people, do deals, or are interesting, but certainly it's not a perfect process whatsoever. And that's always a work in progress.
So maybe the final question though, then, is a great guest for that, a contributor. What is it that one of our listeners could do right now to kind of contribute to the ecosystem? Like what advice? I mean, you've had this entire interview has been, but just practical kind of get started, and how would you approach social media today?
It's folks who are, nice, good people who use social media to add value to others. They're not on there selling. They're not on there, they're just focused on making the community better, being positive. Someone like a Bob Knackle, that's exactly, who we want. Someone who is trying to help. He is helpful, and just, good people that are part of this community who are also doing, things in the real estate world anywhere in the US.
Well, this was amazing, Don. Thank you so much for taking the time. And this has been just such an incredible discussion. So I know our audience is going to get a ton of benefit. And thank you again for everything you do for the community.
I appreciate it a lot. I really, really do.
And thank you. And thank you to all for joining. As always, forward this episode to a friend. If you didn't get value out of this, I don't know what to tell you. But the best thing you can do is share this, right? Yes, the 5-star reviews, subscribe, the drill. But really share this episode, right? So until next week, thank you again for joining.
Thank you for listening to the Insider's Edge to Real Estate Investing. We appreciate your subscribing and sharing with your friends. If you haven't already, please connect with James at James Nelson NYC on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Please also visit jamesnelson.com, where you can sign up for our monthly newsletter, find the show notes, other episodes, exclusive video series, and other helpful resources so you can gain the insider's edge to real estate investing. Until next week.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. The opinions expressed are those of the guests and not their companies. Listeners should not act upon the information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, lawyer, or other professional.